Hey, booktubers. Well, I thought I would try a book review. Let's see how I do with this. Anyway, this was one that I finished recently, The Lost Art of Reading, Why Books Matter in a Distracted Time. And this is by David L. Ulin, I guess that's the name. It's a rather small and thin book, but it's kind of packed full of interesting things, I thought anyway. In essence, it is, I'll read the back part of it to you. Okay. It says, reading is a revolutionary act. The siren calls of email, Twitter, smartphones, and iPods conspire to pull us away from the long-form writing of books. For David L. Ulin, this swelling problem, from which he is hardly immune, begged the question, does reading even matter anymore? Ulin's answer can be found in this ruminative essay, a blend of memoir and criticism that explores the effects of a life of reading. He finds the super-connected digital world to be illusory, I can't pronounce that word, illusory, and oddly demanding that we disengage, particularly from the rapturous immersion that a good book requires of its reader. Can we afford to forego the memory, cognition, and sense of narrative derived from books? Ulin recommends the art of reading. Whether the medium is ink on paper or digital type, it is the immersion that matters. The simple act of reading is one we can no longer take for granted. The lost art of reading is a stirring call to arms, or rather, to pages. So it really is kind of a memoir. He goes through many parts of his life and talks about the books that he read and how obviously it affected him. The storyline really starts out with him and his son, and it's rather interesting. And the book, The Great Gatsby, his son was assigned to read it from school, and so then he went in. Started reading the book and was asked to make annotations and all this stuff. So every time the boy would start reading, he'd have to stop and write something down. And he told his dad, he says, "Why don't they just let us read it?" So this went on, kind of like a theme throughout the whole book. There was one interesting part about when they were scuba diving in the ocean, and he had to save his son. I won't give that away too much, but that's what happened. And so, as a father, of course, he thinks he has to help his son with The Great Gatsby and try to understand what the book is about and that. So I won't tell you how all that ends, but it's really an interesting book, and I was going to read just a couple little snippets. Here's a small snippet that I rather enjoyed. Kind of wraps up the philosophy of the book. Time, however, is the enemy in contemporary culture, less a source of context than constraint. We bridle against its limitations, not existentially, but in far more prosaic terms, subdividing it into merest bits and pieces, translating it into dollars gained or lost. So I like that in the fact that when you think about what the internet and all the social networking and the Twitters and all this, I'm not against those things. It's just that it is fragmentary. It's little bits of pieces of things here and there. And I thought I had read recently, maybe was even in this book, where the brain kind of likes that. It likes little pieces of information, then it tries to put it together in patterns and to find some type of a consistency. Or I used a word on the blog that I wrote that I can't think of right now, but in any case, I think you understand what I'm saying. Another little snippet that I really liked. Not long ago, I spent a week in Palm Springs and saw one woman once reading a Kindle while sitting beside the pool. I have never seen a Nook or a Sony reader except as a display model, and until my friend took out her iPad and offered me a demonstration, I had never seen one of those outside of the Apple Store. What this means, I think, is that there is still a certain disconnect between where the culture is and where it's going, between the machines that appear likely to define the future of reading and how we use them or don't use them in the present tense. As it turns out, I was enraptured by the iPad. I'm no Luddite, after all. I love my iPod, love my BlackBerry, love the limitless reach technology offers when I don't allow myself to get lost. Sitting at the table, I opened the Marvel Comics application and scrolled through an issue of X-Men, admiring the digital clarity of the art. I zoomed in on individual images, read part of the story frame by frame as if it were an animation, somewhere between the movie screen and the page. Next, my friend showed me the iBook version of A. Milne's Winnie the Pooh, which had come preloaded as a teaser. Or as a tease. As I navigated the story with a succession of finger swipes, I saw for the first time an ebook that looked like a book, with page numbers and illustrations and attention to design. I've had a Kindle now for a while, but I rarely use it because the interface is inhospitable to me. I think in pages, not in screens. I like the idea of the book as object, of the book as artifact, of reading as a three-dimensional, tactile experience in which the way a text looks or feels or even smells has an influence over how or whether I engage. So it's not exactly like he's completely against technology. He loves technology, but he's just not quite ready for the e-reader. So that kind of brings me to my next point. A lot of people were doing this 11 in 2011. So I was going to take a shot at it. And as you can see, I wrote a bunch of notes down, thinking, okay, where am I going to go with this? If I could even attempt to try to pick 11 books and actually have some type of a structure to my reading. It's kind of funny because I really like structure, except when it comes to reading, or at least I have never applied it to my reading. So I don't know. I was trying to think in genres. So like mysteries, books about books, so maybe something from the ancient Greek or Latin, in English translations, of course. Something in the travel genre, history or historical fiction. I'd like to read a Dickens book. Definitely want to read Harry Potter 7, something from Flannery O'Connor, a book of short stories by an author. I'm thinking Henry James. I read a couple of his short stories recently and enjoyed them, so I was going to maybe try the whole book that I have. I have a volume of them from the Library of America. And then I wanted to read one or two Shakespeare plays. So I don't know, as I was writing these things down, I was like, I kept going off into tangents, like, oh yeah, I'd like to read that, and I started looking over books I have in my library, and it's like, man, I'd like to try that one and try that one, so it was sort of became overwhelming to me. So my attempt at structure sort of failed. So I don't know whether I'm going to follow this or not. I sort of left the genres kind of open-ended. So maybe in that respect, I have a little bit of choice when it comes. When I decide to do the mystery, I have a book of Sherlock Holmes, for example, and it has 3 volumes in one. And I've read the first 2 sections, like The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, and like the next. I don't remember what the other one was like. The Next Adventures. Then there's a third, which is also in this volume, which I haven't read yet. So it's probably like the last 200 pages or so. So I might try that, or possibly a more modern fiction. I have Anne Perry's Bedford that I wanted to try. So I don't know what I'm going to do. With the travel, I might also actually include adventure in there too, because I have some adventure books that I'd like to get to. So I don't know what I'm going to do. So... everybody seems to be writing in a blog, so I started a little blog actually a couple months ago, and I only had one little entry in it. And I did write a small review with for this book, which is in the blog, and I will put that down in the bottom part over here, the bottom part. And if you're interested, there's only 2 entries out there right now, but we'll see how far that goes. The YouTube videos take up a lot of time. I'm not sure I want to spend even more time writing about the stuff because it takes me longer to write, it seems like. So I guess that's it for now. See you later.